July 11th, 2006. It's the interview of Joseph DuCanto. Joe, when did you first join the Academy?
Arthur, it was a year or two after its formation. I believe it was 1964.
And why did you join, Joe?
Well, I would join because I was invited by Victor Newmark and Matt Salita, who were seasoned divorce lawyers at that time, to join in what was then a concerted effort to bring about substantial changes in the what was happening in the divorce field, judicial field in Illinois at that time, and Chicago. The divorce law was a stepchild of the court system, and we were very shabbily treated. That is, those who handled divorce, divorced clients themselves, and the whole process of family law was given very, very short shrift by the judicial system, particularly in terms of the way it was really handed out, in a sense, by the administrative courts, almost as a matter of punishment. I mean, each judge was required, whether he liked it or not, to accept several divorce cases on each assignment. And of course, if they had a full calendar and they happened to be Catholic and were opposed to divorce, or if they just had a bad night with their wives, you never knew where the hell you were going to go, because most of these judges resented even having to get into this area. So it became a very objectionable field of practice from that point of view. And it did not improve no matter what we did, except when we began to organize and began to talk.
But in the long run, the Academy was successful in getting...
It was a long run. It required a considerable amount of effort and a call, and by the older, more experienced guys, what I will say is the call in of many due bills from politically and business and financially powerful people to say, hey, this is an area of practice that needs to be attended to, just like tort, just like contract, just like business law. And if you treat the people who come to you like they're second-class citizens, you can expect that there's going to be some substantial reaction. And that helped to change it. And we finally were able to get what was really a remarkable thing for us then, 2 courtrooms assigned and dedicated only to divorces, plus a couple of judges who volunteered and were willing to serve as divorce judges instead, and were dedicated to doing a decent job. Now, admittedly, these courtrooms are like broom closets, but they were a hell of a lot better than some of the other facilities that were available at the time. So we began to build in that direction. And of course, here we are, nearly 45 years later, with Cook County having a divorce division that has very close to 50 judges in it, hearing a whole wide range of family divorce matters, and is in fact looked upon as one of the prime examples of a good family court system. And it's really a tribute to the early people, and even to my generation, who sustained the push to accomplish all of this.
Joe, what was the organization like when you first joined?
Well, the organization was really about 3 guys. Basically, you could talk about all the rest, but there was a guy by the name of Davis, Muller Davis's father, who was then the president and the original founder, and then we had after him one of his partners. I've forgotten the name right at the moment.
Bill Boyden was
Bill Boyden, right? Exactly, Bill Boyden, who carried the ball after Davis died, and then the ever-present Sam Ranella. Sam, you know, you'll live for another 50 years, and the name of Sam Ramella will still draw clients. He was a remarkable guy. I loved him. Even as he was stealing the gold out of my teeth.
Now, in those days, the Academy was basically run by a few people.
Exactly. Eddie Rosenberg, you remember him?
Yes, I do.
And
Yes, I'm not taping it. I'm sorry, Joe.
Eddie Rosenberg was at that time a really young attorney, but brash beyond belief, and a veritable genius always. I mean, he had ideas that were just off the wall, but when you field stripped them, started looking at them, there was a lot of substance, and he helped these guys, particularly, for there were no women involved here, kind of formulate where they're going and why. And of course, I don't mean to hide my own participation, but after I became a member, I very quickly was named counsel to the Academy, counsel, because it was a non-fee paying job, obviously, and I had plenty of time as a young lawyer. And one of the first missions I had was to put together a viable set of constitution and bylaws for the Academy, which I did. And those prevailed for many years until they were, maybe some 20 years later, revised yet again. But the initial bylaws and so forth, I was prominent in putting together. But the most important element here is that is, as counsel for the Academy, I was privy to all the meetings, and what went on sub rosa, and who was doing what to whom, and therefore was to some degree trusted by the guys to do the right thing and also at appropriate times keep my mouth shut.
Joe, looking back, do you believe that the Academy has reached the goals that it set out to?
I'm sorry, Doctor.
Do you believe that the Academy has reached the goals that it was set out to?
Well, the immediate goal they had was achieved in a relatively brief period of time, and that is to recognize and deal with the area of family law as a self-sustaining and important judicial function and a legal specialty. Time, in terms of what's going on in society as a whole, has re-emphasized and the importance of that message, such that today divorce drives the wagon in many ways. I mean, newspapers, magazines, and books, and legal cases and so forth are just replete with the comings and goings of many-time married people. Our society has entered into what I consider a serial marriage frame of reference. I mean, we marry not once in our lifetime, but 2 and 3 times when we live a full life. Of course, we're now living a full life, as I have at close to 80, where, you know, you leave one period of your life and one suit behind, and you climb into an entirely different suit and an entirely different set of problems, and you proceed. Nothing is forever, as we're beginning to understand. And marriage, which was made until death do us part, was okay in biblical times, when living to 35 or 40 was a feat. But when you live to 70, 80, and even 90 years, the need for rethinking your early life choice is very much with people, and they do it now with some dignity and with little public opprobrium.
Joe, when the Academy started, did it have visions of being a national organization?
No,
When
no.
was that?
Initially, we were fighting our own battle, because again, as we all know, family law has been historically and constitutionally a matter reserved to the states, and it was quite plain in those years before no-fault divorce and before uniform marriage and divorce acts and all that stuff. It was very much a local problem, and the law in Illinois was nothing like the law in Alabama, for example, and clearly not like the law in California. The comparabilities were not there. We were interested in being national at the time.
Well, we had our own unique problems in Illinois, being a state that was dominated by the church.
Well, we've always had that, and we still have it today, except that it's muted. As a guy who has been on the approved list of the Archdiocese of Chicago for many years, I have a little more intimate knowledge of that. My background as a birthright Catholic gave me that, and my years of teaching at Loyola University School of Law also. But the notion is that most religion bows to what people in their unregulated state do as a matter of course. And if a large number of your members decide that an issue like eating meat on Friday is ridiculous and they start eating meat on Friday, they'll change the rules. And to some degree, they have changed the rules in the Catholic Church. And this is, again, a part of the problem I alluded to earlier, Arthur. Some of those Irish judges who had been born and bred at the turn of the 20th century were absolutely utterly opposed to divorce. You then appear before them on a divorce case and see what kind of assistance you got in resolving the issues there. Sometimes it's pretty pathetic.
Joe, when did the Academy first look towards bringing in people from other states?
It was when people from other states came to us, Arthur. We would have a meeting, for example, our annual meeting, and somebody would show up some lawyer would show up from New York and say, hey, you guys have got a good thing going here. What are you doing? How'd you do this? I think I'd like to take it back to my state. We've got similar problems and so on and so forth. And it was really, in the legal community, the word went out I think, rapidly that Chicago had something going. And don't forget, we had the onset of the timely growth of the American Bar Association Family Law Section. Now that group was growing parallel to ours, and it had many, many more members. But the point was that virtually every member of the Academy was also a member of this other group.
That wasn't a requirement at the time, was it?
It became a requirement. I don't think it was initially, but it became a requirement. And the realities are is that we're out there proselytizing with these people from North Platte, Nebraska, Taos, New Mexico, and so on. And the first thing you know, they're trying to import and want to do what we've done and establish their own chapters, and that's happened. Actually, there was no chapters here for many years. It was just Chicago. You joined the Chicago group, but then there was a good agitation for Chicago forming its own chapter and letting every other group have its separate chapter. And we did that, and legally that was fine.
Phil Solomon was one of the first from the out-of-state people that joined the Academy. Is that correct?
Phil Solomon was one of the first of the New York group, and he was very effective. He's a tough guy, tough trial lawyer. I liked Phil. He was a stand-up guy, and you know, pretty hard to be stand-up when you're a stand-up guy when you're only 5'2". But he managed.
You're still active somewhat in the academy, aren't you?
In a minimal way. I don't participate in any functions. That is, any administrative or offices of the academy. I'm certainly decidedly interested. I follow what's going on.
From what you hear and what you see, where do you think the academy is today?
I think, like so many institutions, they've become mature. And in maturity, there is a tendency to become more self-satisfied and less experimental, less willing to shake the trees a bit. I don't think that the Illinois Academy has had any great influence on such things as legislation, the setups and configurations of the various court systems that deal with these issues. I think it's been kind of a go-along. Yeah, maybe once in a while a judge will ask for some input, but it's rare. And I do think that that there should be a significant effort on the part of the continuing effort to study and to bring about positive change. Let me tell you one, Arthur, that's really so very simple. It boggles me and why people haven't done it. One of the things we complain about constantly is how long it takes a case to get through the system here. Isn't that true?
To an extent, yes.
Yeah, okay. Number one. Number two, we have a divorce law which clearly specifies that the valuation date of the asset shall be at the date the divorce goes down, right? Now, you got to be a simpleton to understand that that's a fundamental impossibility, bending over and kissing your backside, right? You can't do that, can you?
Are you asking me personally?
Well, I mean, it doesn't make sense. And as a consequence of what has been happening for years, and nobody pays any attention to it, is that you have a situation where when the suit is first filed, there's a flurry of requests for financial information. Well, financial information in the personal corporate setting, at the time you ask for it, is at least 6 months old, right? I mean, it's just by the nature of things. That's the way it is. So, 6 months to a year into the case, you have to redo it. Isn't that true? In order to bring it up to date. In addition to that, and so you really have increased discovery expenditures enormously here. Secondarily, we have many situations in a volatile financial business community in which it is possible for a spouse, the non-property spouse, to speculate on the husband's or wife's great income and emoluments growing. If you have a spouse who's earning $750,000 to $1.5 million, $2 million a year, plus bonuses, plus stock options, what the hell is the sense of hurrying through a divorce? Because each and every dollar he makes or she makes during the period of divorce is what? Marital property. Marital property. So you will often find in the higher end cases where a spouse, usually the wife, will say, hey, take it easy. I'm not going anywhere. He's got this thing over here, but I'm not going anywhere. Drag it out for 2 or 3 years, and they can successfully because of the court system as it now operates. one of the suggestions I made that nobody paid any attention to is that we should have a valuation date which is like 60 to 90 days following the filing of the petition. That's the valuation date, and that's the date to be used unless the court finds for good cause shown some other date should be used. Now that's to prevent some sharpshooter from deciding that he wants to fix a price because he knows it's going to go way up and so on. But that then prevents a lot of this double dipping in terms of discovery, and it also reduces the need for one to speculate on the ultimate value of the assets at the time of divorce. Impressed me, I think, the most during this period is that those who rose to membership or to high office in the academy were, generally speaking, people who made substantial contributions in one sort or another and sincerely wanted to be in leadership positions. And they were not looking for self-aggrandizement. That is, they weren't looking for the publication of the publicity as much as they were to make some contribution above and beyond just doing their everyday job. And I admired them.
Joe, when you first joined, was there an exam that you had to pass?
No, I was warm and alive, and that was it. And of course, by this time I had published a couple of papers and so forth, so everybody knew I could read and write.
I want to ask you about that. When you first joined the academy, the issue of taxation in divorce was basically unknown.
Oh yeah, there wasn't any taxation in divorce.
And to me, you were the one that brought that to the attention not only of the academy,
Yes.
but nationally.
Yes, well, quite frankly, Arthur, when I decided after 5 years in a fairly general practice to go off on my own and become specialized in divorce, I did become specialized in divorce and estate planning. I ran them both along the same line for a number of years, but I went looking for tax stuff that would help me in the divorce field, and there wasn't anything. And so I began to do independent research and began to write some articles. And it seemed apparent that there was a lot of misunderstanding of the management and treatment of payments between spouses, which could qualify for alimony deduction and those which did not, because they were in the form of property settlement, etc. And much of it was not only a problem of understanding the theoretical differences, but the drafting problem. So I attended both of these by trying to take these very complex ideas and field strip them into understandable language, and then come up with examples. Now, in law literature during this period, nobody gave examples. That would have been thought beyond, something beyond the pale of respectable legal lore. But I began to do it, and within a very short period of time, several years later, the major publishers in the United States, the legal publishers, began to do the same damn thing. Instead of describing by words the function of a statute, they also gave you examples, so you have something to work with. I did that, and then I began to move out of the Chicago community into other states and other bar associations, other forming academies, and became a poster boy in a sense. And there was a period of years when I was out 30, 40 times a year all over the country. It was great for me. I had a lot of fun, met a lot of people. Tough on my marriage, but then, those are the prices you pay.
You also introduced us to the calculator.
I'm sorry?
You also introduced us to the calculator. You had a Texas Instruments calculator?
Oh yes, well, but what I also did was to couple the understanding of tax dimension with an attempt to make young people understand the importance of finance, just calculations, numbers. I mean, if somebody gives you a number and says, "Here's what I want," if you let me put it together, I'll do it every time. I can make a deal, but you have to know your numbers. And one of the techniques is to use a financial calculator that helps you think through these issues and come to some conclusion as to what kind of configuration is best for your client, and perhaps not bad for the other side as well. And I put together multiple guides and aids, like tax charts, like alimony discount charts that tell you what the stream of payments are over a period of years, discounted at present value. And it was a smart move, because most lawyers going through law school, and few of them in undergraduate school, ever acquire any of these essential accounting, tax, financial skills. And of course, that's the heart and soul today of the major divorce cases when we talk about dividing equitably or whatever the marital property.
That's it.
Is that it? Painless.